Hi there, and good evening to this edition of the Frankie Flowers Garden Q&A. I somewhat call it stay grounded at times because I'm helping you stay grounded when it comes to the world of gardening on a Monday evening in the month of August, where here in Southern Ontario, temperatures have cooled after a wild and wicked weekend of weather, record-breaking rainfall at Pearson on Saturday, some really tornadic activity that moved through areas just outside of Cambridge and Ayr, Ontario. Thoughts and prayers go to those. Good thing that there was no loss of life. Anytime that you have the stress of property damage, that is indeed stressful. And we are, when we garden outdoors, whether we garden or we're in the agricultural world, the horticultural world, we are really at the mercy of Mother Nature. So you can have the best season ever, then all of a sudden, boom, especially when it came to farming. We had a field that actually flooded when I was a kid, when we were farming in Cookstown, in the Cookstown Marsh. And then just in 2016, I had my family that farms in the Hollow Marsh here in Bradford, Ontario, where hail came through and just made a massacre, I would say, of all the items that are out there. So just let you guys know what we can do on this evening is you can go into the chats. You can say hello, just like people out there like Matthew Amos is popping up a hello this evening as well. You can ask me your garden questions. But to start off with today, I want to go to Facebook. And the reason why I want to go to Facebook is yesterday, I did pose the question out there to say, hey, if you guys have your questions, let's start off by putting them right here. So we have a couple different questions that I'm going to file through. We actually had 66 different comments and or questions that are here. So we won't get through all these, but this is a great way to kick off kind of what we're chatting about. So you can also, if you're not watching me on Facebook, you can go on to Ask Frankie Flowers on Facebook. You can find me on YouTube at Frankie Flowers as well. And also always check out frankieflowers.com. Victoria, when can spring bulbs be planted? I dried bulbs out of hyacinths, tulips, daffodils, and Easter lilies. So the hyacinths, tulips, and daffodils are all spring flowering bulbs, and they should be planted in the fall. So what we're waiting for is the first couple frosts before we would plant those. Those plant at a depth of 3 times their height in depth. Easter lilies are a tropical tuber and or bulb that really should be only planted indoors. You could leave it in the ground. It will overwinter if it's a perennial and it's actually already rooted. But what I would do for this year, if you really want that Easter lily, is I would take that Easter lily, I would pot it into a pot of potting soil. Then what I would do is put it into a cold cellar and leave it in your cold cellar up until about January, just the beginning of January. Pop it out of the cold cellar, put it indoors in an area of light. That's the plunge period that it'll go through. And then what we can do is some light and heat, we can get it to bloom for Easter and then plant it into the garden. It is a variety of Asiatic lily. Questions as well. Garlic powder in the soil deter chipmunks from consuming plants. Any other tips to help them from eating bulbs once planted? They won't eat daffodils because they're poisonous. They may eat hyacinths or tulips. Another thing that I've found with great success is chicken pellets, the pelletized chicken manure. By top dressing with that, you'd be amazed at how well it does repel some squirrels out of the garden. Liz Cameron, my peony plants has developed black spots on the leaves. What is causing this and how do I treat it? I'm going to call this year the year of the disease because with the amount of rainfall we've had, the wettest summer, this is going to be the wettest summer that we've ever seen on record, heat and humidity, it is the perfect recipe for diseases like black spot on peonies, like blight on, maybe you even experienced that on some of your tomato plants, or maybe even blossom end rot. And powdery mildew on everything from even peonies all the way through to cucumbers, squash, and even zucchinis. So what do you do with your peonies right now because they have black spots on them? Not much. Leave them as is. This fall, what you're going to do is cut back and discard that foliage. I mean, discard it. Don't put it in the composter. Put it for curbside for pickup. Clean up as much as you can around that plant. Make sure that the where the peonies are planted, there's some good air circulation. What is causing this is exactly the weather. How do you treat it? Just clean it up this fall. And then hopefully next spring, we're not going to see it reoccur. If you start to see any of those black spots reoccurring, you're going to use a Miracle-Gro fungicide to take care of that. We got Jennifer. Hi, I'm wondering how to transplant a fairly hefty wisteria to another location. I planted 8 or 9 years ago against our wooden fence, which is not nearly strong enough to support it. Thank you. Best time to be transplanting that, I would say, would be in this fall. So what I would do is cut that plant back, that wisteria back, quite hefty. I would plant it back probably almost down to a third of its overall size. And wisteria can take this. in the fall, and you're going to do this mid-September, you're going to transplant it to its new location. When you're going to remove it from the ground, we're going to try to not disturb the root ball as much as possible. So we want to dig around it, making sure that we maintain that root soil around that root mass, move it to a new location, use a Quick Start, Miracle-Gro Quick Start fertilizer, and then water it. Make sure that you're going to be putting it into a sunny location. That's not going to get too much nitrogen from any lawn fertilizers out there. We got Liz DeLizzi. Oh my God, so gorgeous. Love your Zebrinia. Actually, just probably talking about my planters that are there. There's some Diplodenias that we have, actually mandavillas. And as well, what I have there is some Wandering Jew and just a Kimberly Queen fir. That's the top fern, that is. That's the top picture that's there. Ann Clarkson. Hey, Ann, my tomato plants were killed with a late blight again this year. What needed to be done to make my vegetable garden less hospitable to this blight? As I said, it's the year of disease. Key, though, is when we have tomato blight or we have, let's say, powdery mildew in some of our vegetable plants that we go to plant next year, we don't plant them in the same location. Crop rotation is key. The other thing is, too, is when you're going to pick tomato varieties, look for tomato varieties that are VFN, which is virus-free varieties, and those are hybrid varieties generally, so you're not going to get the heirlooms, but they'll be a little bit less hospitable to early and or late blight. But really the key is crop rotation, not planting the same location next year. In the location where you had your tomatoes planted this year, I would really recommend for you to plant something green there. So either leaf lettuce, head lettuce, even kale. Can my Ann Clarkson, can my jasmine star be brought in over winter and kept alive? Yes, indeed. When you're bringing it in the fall before frost warnings, give it a spraying with an insecticidal soap like a Bug Be Gone. That will make sure you're not bringing any insects in. You're going to put it into a room that's a bright room, either west or south facing windows, not directly in front of the window, but nice bright light. Water only when dry. Do not put it near any heating vents. You may find that it may drop a lot of its foliage when it's first moved in because it's going to be acclimatizing to the light. But thereafter, it will start to put some more leaves on and will grow. So I'm going to stop sharing this right now. And I'm going to go on to our live chat right now to see if we have some people out there. Tanya's making a good comment. Hi, happy cool temperatures. Yeah, quite cool. That's out there as well. I'm just going to pop up here as well. We got Laura, and I like the cooler weather. Frankie, you're absolutely the best. Thanks for being you. Thank you for saying that. I try my best. I'm not absolutely the best. There are moments when my mom would tell you I wasn't the best. Okay, Crystal, boom, boom, boom. Hi, Frankie, hope you're well. My tomato plants are dropping their flowers. So often when we see a leaf drop or a flower drop on any fruiting plant or even drop of fruit is a reaction to stress. That stress can be anything from the heat we had. So maybe this is an earlier drop. So sometimes there'll be heat stress, or there's another stress that is happening at the time. Sometimes it can be blight, yellowing leaves, things like that. So what would be great, Crystal, is if you could send me a photo of your tomato plant, frankie@frankieflowers.com, and we can take a look what's going on. Most likely it was probably due to the heat and it was dropping some of the flowers. Now that we're seeing some cooler evening, warmer days, it should rebound quite nicely. That's out there as well. We got Stella, Bobella, Barama, Rema, Fofella, Mima, Momella, Stella the Rebel. Hi, Frankie, can you help with the best time of year to take clippings from a pussy willow tree to transplant it? Thanks, love all your tips. Pussy willows are so easy, so incredibly easy to just take a bunch of those stems and just stick them in the dirt. You could do some right now. Take some of the tender growth that you have on those pussy willows and stick a bunch of them into the ground and they will root. Key is moisture, making sure that we have adequate moisture to keep them nice and moist. So if you can just keep that area watered. Next key is that we're into cooler temperatures. You may find better success doing this in spring, but I would do this at any time of the year with no problem, no hesitation whatsoever. Pussy willows are quick to germinate. Just take a bunch of those stems, stick them in, and probably when you stuck 6 stems in, you'll probably get at least 4 that germinate. But just be careful because they grow fast and they grow quick and they take up a lot of space. Reminder, they do tend to like wet feet as well. We got my good friend Christine who's saying hello from Prince Edward County. Lovely Prince Edward County. We got Amanda who's saying shout out from McDonald's Corners, Ontario. Amanda, on the way to Peterborough off the 401, I believe. Sandy is saying We too cool. We too cool. Way, I think she's saying way too cool, not we too cool. Brr. Yeah, we're not used to these chilly conditions, but it does give our plant material a rest. You'll actually notice with cooler conditions and a little bit more rain, which we've been seeing rain, your lawn should be nice and green that's out there. And a lot of your things like calibracholas, petunias, some of those plants that have struggled over the last little bit should pick their way up. A big reminder too, if your petunias are looking a little, calibrachola, which are million bells, or petunias are looking a little woody, a little leggy, they're just not as vibrant, give them a cut them back half their size. They'll reflush and they'll get some good growth and continue to fertilize those as well. We got a question here about coneflowers from Cheryl. My coneflowers turning pink purple. It would be, there can be many different reasons for the variation in color. One reason for the variation in color could be that maybe some shade in the area, or it could even be some sun bleach that's in the area, or they're under stress. So that, and then the heat that we had fairly extreme heat. It's amazing the impact that it will put onto some plants. Be great to see a picture of that. Once again, my email address is frankie@frankieflowers.com. We got Bonnie. Hi, Bonnie. Hi, Frankie from Norwood, Ontario. When is the best plants to transplant a daylily? So ideally, when we want to do any transplanting, it's either spring or fall. That's the general rule of thumb. Daylilies, the reason why you get the name daylily is their bloom lasts a day. Super hardy, super easy, very vigorous growers. So I would be somebody with confidence as long as we're going into a period of cooler conditions with a little bit of rainfall out there and you're able to be around to water it. I would even do some dividing and transplanting now, even though we're in mid-August. So we're getting near the end of the season with cooler nights. But things like, I would not hesitate to transplant if I had to and I had time. Daylilies, I would be doing hostas if I had time right now. I would even do some sedums. Even the sedums, sometimes we want to wait till they're done their bloom period. But those are ones that are tough as nails, easy to do some transplanting. The key is to be around to keep them moist so that they can establish their root systems. And then as well, if you can, reduce the shock by using a quick start fertilizer. Really key as well. Joyce Clark. Joyce is asking a question, can I transplant trumpet flower vine now? Trumpet flower vine, also an extremely vigorous grower. Wherever you plant your trumpet vine, be very careful and cautious, knowing that sometimes that'll send shoots down and pop up into your lawn. So if you're transplanting in an area, making sure that you put a nice tight edge around it, super important. Now, as I mentioned, we're at the 15th of August. What's the date? We're past that, actually. We're at the 19th of August. Cooler nights, we're seeing that in the forecast. We're getting more like fall conditions, that cooler air that you're seeing. Trumpet vine, very hardy, extremely hardy. Actually, you can take some slips and cuttings off that with these. I'd be confident in going for it right now, or even just waiting to the beginning of September if you want to be a little bit more safe. We got Denise saying hello from Bobcaygeon. Hello, Bobcaygeon. What a beautiful place in the province of Ontario. Another transplanting question here too. When is the best time to transplant decorative grasses? So your decorative grasses, I'd be more confident in doing these guys in later fall. So I would be doing these, not in later fall, I'd be doing these mid-September. And that's, I'm assuming that you may be doing a transplant and divide. So it depends on the type of grass as well, because there are decorative grasses that are not hardy. So some of the annual grasses that you may have bought, like the purple fountain grass, which is a penstemon, that guy there is not a hardy grass that will overwinter. So it'd be really great to know which decorative or ornamental grasses is generally what we call them. But many of those can be transplanted with ease as well. But doing a mid-September, if you're doing division and transplant with those guys, is a little bit better. So we got another one here, which is the Cake Pop Sisters. Hi, Cake Pop Sisters. Hi, Frankie. Wonder if a weeping mulberry non-fruiting tree could be planted in a container. So weeping mulberry, once again, when you talk about non-fruiting, most mulberries out there are fruiting, and they're the weeping form. The reason why I tend to like, if you're using this for a planting along a walkway near a front entrance, the reason why non-fruiting is better than fruiting is the fruit will actually drop on the walkway. You walk on it, and it could, forgive me, it can stain your walkway. Can it be planted in a container? The issue with containers is that they freeze really solid. So in the wintertime, because there's not a lot of soil around the root compared to what would be in the soil, in the ground. So number one, there's all that ground, let's say they're in the ground as an insulator, snow on top, another insulator, whereas in a pot, they're just there and they'll freeze that root ball quite solid. And as well, a weak mulberry is grafted on the top. So there's a weak point on the graft, and then there's the container. So it's something I wouldn't recommend in a container. If you wanted to risk it in a container, I would build a container and insulate that container by putting some insulation styrofoam in the interior of that, and then making sure you have drainage as well. Really key on that guy as well. Key is too, with the container, you want to make sure the container that you're using has the ability to drain some of the moisture, because a reminder, in the winter, when that container freezes and the soil freezes, that will expand. As we know, an ice cube, when we put water in the fridge, the ice cube grows. And the soil will grow because it freezes with the water. It'll crack your pot as well. That's out there as well. We got Debbie, who has another question. My butterfly bush is growing crazy. Should I cut it back or just leave it? The thing about butterfly bushes is they will grow right from the ground up to 6 to 7, even 8 feet in height. The thing about butterfly bushes is they are a late summer flowering plant that attracts butterflies. What I would do is I would enjoy it. And as soon as we get hit by a few frosts, you can cut it back so that it's only about 18 inches above the ground. What you will find next spring, and you should be cutting back butterfly bush in the fall anyways, because we don't want any heavy wet snow to bend those stems over, or freezing rain to bend those stems over. So we're cutting it back to make it a more structural plant that can take some of the heavier wet snows. What you'll find is in the spring is they generally shoot from the base, the bottom, but they grow rapidly and very quickly, especially when we have hot seasons overall. We got a first-time gardener, I think, out there, which is great, and I'm happy you are. First time growing and love these Lemon Boy tomatoes, less acidic and they're juicy. Could I save the seeds, rinse dry from growing next year? Yes, you can. There's actually lots of information on saving tomato seeds. Those guys there can be saved and you can be sowing for next year. Sometimes what you find, because the Lemon Boy are a hybrid tomato, so sometimes when you plant those seeds next season, they can revert back to their original variety. So you may actually plant, assuming you're going to get a yellow tomato, but next year you could see that some of those may be a little bit more reddish form. Lemon Boy, all yellow tomatoes are the less acidic varieties that are out there. Great, still with lots of flavor. Still my favorite tomato for flavor. My favorite tomato for flavor is the Cherokee Purple tomato. My favorite, absolute favorite tomato for flavor. So just a reminder of that. We got Andrew, which is saying good evening. Good evening to you too, Andrea, there as well. I'm going to share my screen again here and go back to some of the additional questions that we had from Facebook yesterday. Just want to make sure that we pop through a few of those. We got Lynn. Can gardenia trees be kept in our zone over winter, or must they come inside? Gardenias are not winter hardy. They must come inside. They are a tropical plant and will not overwinter in our zone, not anywhere in Southern Ontario. We got Sue. I planted a trumpet vine 3 summers ago. The vine returns every year and gets quite large, but so no flowers whatsoever. What can I do to get flowers? First off, it needs to be planted in full sun. That's really key. You want to starve it so it's not getting too much nitrogen. So sometimes if you're fertilizing the lawn, the nitrogen then seeps over to where your trumpet vine is, and that will put a bunch of shoots off. Key is a hard pruning in the spring, pruning it back to at least half its size. And sometimes you're going to be seeing some wispy growth along the sides. Pruning out those is really key as well. Trumpet vine does take a few years to mature before it will bloom. So it's only 3 summers ago, but those are some things that are very, very key. David, the bark has been eaten by something on the bottom of our Rose of Sharon. The tree is blooming, doesn't look very healthy. Is there anything we can do to save the tree? So if the bark's being eaten on the bottom of the Rose of Sharon, we got to determine what is that. Could it possibly be rats? It's a huge rat problem right now in Southern Ontario. Could it be mice? Could it be rabbits? Usually the Rose of Sharon will heal themselves. Depends on how badly it's been eaten. But how do we prevent things from eating it more? Animal Be Gone is something you can spray on there that will leave a residual taste. Sometimes you can even put a plastic collar around the base of it to prevent that as well. It doesn't look very healthy. Making sure that you maintain moisture so it doesn't go through any additional stress. And then after it blooms this season, cut it back a bit just to kind of give it a little bit more. What is the best time to plant hydrangeas in Zone 5A? As long as they're container grown, you can be planting hydrangeas now. It depends on which varieties you're wanting to plant that are out there. Container grown plant material are grown in the pot. So as soon as they go in the soil, You just got to kind of loosen the root ball. They'll spread in. As long as you're around to water, you don't want to be planting a whole bunch of plant material at this time of the year and then go off for a 2-week vacation, and then we don't get any rain for 2 weeks. Even though we've had a very wet July and August, the summer you could have planted almost any time with success. But I feel very confident to be planting container grown plant material now. Just ask your local garden center if they've been container grown. W. Ralph, I have a large backyard, a 1/4 acre, and Creepy Charlie is taking over the grass. What is the best to get rid of it? We're very limited on how we can get rid of broadleaf weeds like Creeping Charlie, which is a perennial weed. Before the cosmetic pesticide ban, which has been in place for several years now, we used to have selective herbicides that would select some of the broadleaf weeds like Creeping Charlie. Cosmetic pesticide ban in Ontario no longer allows that. So really the only solution is hand removal and then overseeding and trying to make your lawn the most dominant plant that's out there. Every time though you remove Creeping Charlie, it actually splits and will pop up in other locations. So this can take several years. You're always trying to eliminate the top foliage of the Creeping Charlie so that you starve the root system and then overcrowd it by making the lawn a little thicker in time. For some of the larger patches, you may even want to resaw it over after removing. Hi, Frank. Is it too soon to do fall grass fertilizing? Yes, indeed, it's too soon. We missed doing the spring fertilizing due to family challenge, then became too hot. We are grateful for all the rain, which kept our grass green, but not lush. What numbers? So what I would use is just right now, I would still just use your standard Turf Builder fertilizer. So just your Scott's Turf Builder fertilizer. Then what I would do is on Thanksgiving weekend is when I would apply your fall fertilizer. So that will give you, because we're still sitting middle of August, that'll be the middle of October. That won't be too much fertilizer, and that will give it a nice feeding right now, and then it'll give it a nice winter feeding to set it off for fall as well. I purchased, Marcella, I purchased 3 hydrangeas, 2 have bloom. Not sure why the 3rd has not bloomed. Thank you. So it depends on location. It can be everything from the amount of sunlight, so if they're not seeing as much light, or even the amount of moisture. So sometimes you'll see in a garden everything is thriving, but in one corner things are not blooming, and you're saying to yourself, well, that there has the same amount of light, but then we don't know what's happening underneath. Is it an area where water maybe sits too long and it's sitting too wet? Hydrangeas love water, so it shouldn't be that. Is it an area that's really sandy, so the water's draining, or is there a dominant tree that's planted a little closer to that's causing it to struggle? What you can do is send a picture to me, a wide shot of that guy where it's not blooming, Frankie@frankieflowers.com, and I will help you right there. Let's go back to the live gardening questions as well. Again, we got Carol King. Hey, Carol. Loving my garden this year. Did tomatoes and beans in pots, loads of cherry tomatoes, and I love the yellow ones, low acid. Tomatoes have been great this season. And yeah, I grow all my veggies are raised, either in troughs and or pots. Right now I'm looking out and I see my kale banging off beautifully right now. My rosemary looks great. I got a load of hot peppers, load of tomatoes. My basil's looking good. Just finishing off with my beans right now. My zucchini's struggling, still putting a few on, but it did get powdery mildew. But overall, the garden is looking really good because when I'm facing you, I'm facing right to my backyard. So just to let you know what I'm facing right now as I see my hydrangeas in bloom. My Colbiner maples are there. I can see my nice peonies with the dark foliage that's on them right now. I still have some Shasta daisies in the backyard in bloom. A nice little collection for my little backyard that's out there as well. So we got another question here from Mano. Hi, Frankie. I had hollyhock pink color a few years back. We had rain and my hollyhock turned to light yellow. Since then is yellow. I also had bellflowers from white turned purple, but they are back to white. Why is this happening? So we're always, people talk about genetic modification of plants. Well, I'm going to tell you, what's out there modifying our plants all the time are our pollinators. So our bees flying from flower to flower to flower are creating different colors, different mutations, and different blooms that are there. Sometimes, though, you're also seeing that some of the plants that actually have been hybridized and or mutated by pollinization, sometimes they'll revert back to their original forms. So what could be happening to your hollyhock that went from pink to light yellow and then now is yellow is it's reverting back to its original form. So it's very unlikely that it's going to go back to pink. And the same thing with your bellflower that turned well, that from white turned purple, but they are back to white. Why is this happening? They reverted back to their original form, which is the white. The purple could have just been caused by, some of the insects that they're pollinating for you. It's not really an acidity or any type of thing that happened in the soil with those types of plants. Whereas hydrangeas, the mop head hydrangeas, which are macrophylla, which is the large leaf, those guys there, based upon the acidity of soil, you'll get different bloom colors. So you'll go from a pink for alkaline soil for a hydrangea to a blue for an acidic soil. So, but your variety is more so going to cause some of those mutations out there due to pollinators. So we got another question here from Karen Williams. Hi, wondering if we need to reapply corn gluten before frost, or is it only once a year? Thanks. Corn gluten can be applied in the fall to prevent some germination of seeds, weed seeds that are out there, particularly dandelions at that time of the year. But it's best and most efficiently applied in early spring as a preventative. So it's germinating the weed seeds of really at that time crabgrass and taking care of it. So the most effective time to use corn gluten, because it's not the least expensive product that's out there. It can be quite costly. Is in spring is what I would recommend. Kenna, what do I need to do to my lilac bush in the fall? Lilacs you prune after bloom. In the fall, you just kind of let them be. And in the spring, any dead wood that you see, you're going to remove any of that dead wood in the spring. And then after it blooms, you can prune it back to a third. You can prune it back overall a third, bring it back a little bit. The only things that I would prune in the fall, let's say that we had some erratic branches growing out. We can prune those back. Anything that's broken, we can prune those back. And anything we might think might get damaged by heavy snow load, that's what we can do. In the spring, when you're pruning it back by an overall third, remove some of the center branches as well to create some good airflow that's in there as well. So really, in the fall, don't do much to your lilac. We got TJ this evening saying, hi, Frankie. Garden greetings from Kawartha Lakes to you as well. Tracy. Tracy, hornworms. My first time encountering them, decimating my tomatoes, mostly the leaves, still saving the fruit, thankfully. I picked 2 off and got rid of them. Any other advice? So the tomato hornworm is an ugly creature. It almost looks prehistoric in many ways. Big, fat, green thing with stripes. It looks like it has horns. You can spray it with BTK, which is Bacillus thuringiensis. That'll actually cause it to get sick and get rid of it, or the pick and squish or the pick and discard, exactly what you've done. There's been a lot of population of hornworms this year on tomatoes. So if you're looking out there and you're seeing your tomato leaves stripped, it's generally hornworms. Do a little closer inspection. You should be able to see that green worm. Pick, remove, and discard. Sometimes birds, if you see them on your tomato plants, the birds are going in for the good eats, which they're eating those guys as well. We got another question as well this evening. Hi, Frankie, just received a fern from a friend. How do I take care of it? Type of fertilizer, watering. Am I right to think they prefer a shady spot? So if it is a fern, an outdoor perennial fern, most outdoor perennial ferns do enjoy shaded locations. There are some ferns that actually can do more in higher lights. We need to figure out what variety that fern is. If the fern you received is a Boston fern or a Kimberly Queen fern, then it's a tropical fern that can't be planted outdoors. It would need to be brought indoors and tends to like humidity. So I would really ask you just to find out the variety and then either text me back here or comment me back here or go to frankie@frankieflowers.com for a few more. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to pop over to the Facebook because we had lots of questions there, and I'm going to answer 2 more questions on the Facebook comment page that we had. Corinne, hi Frankie, I have 3 trees in my backyard, which I think are white poplars. I think they all have slime, which you glue, slime flecks. It's been months now. What should I worry? 2 are close together, and 1 is quite far away from them. It's quite disgusting. Not sure what to do. First thing is I would like to figure out white poplars, fast-growing tree, which I tend not to like to have around residential areas. The reason for that is as they get too big and they're so fast growing, the stems and branches tend to break on them. So I'd really like to see the location of these poplars. I wouldn't worry too much, but I would love to see some pictures of this to make sure this is the exact problem, not a borer, because there's a population problem that it might be a borer. So Corinne, I'm just going to say, I'm going to go here. Can you email me a pic to Frankie? Here we go. Frankie at frankieflowers.com. Flowers.com. Real action. Boom. Okay, so a few, and then we got another question here. A few of my perennial hydrangeas, azaleas, are still in blooming heart appear yellowish. What do I supplement? Is this an iron deficiency, soil pH, or inconsistent watering? So, Ruth, could be a reaction to many different things. It could be, I would guess, most likely the hot, humid conditions with the amount of rainfall that we've had, which has really caused a lot of stress on plants. So, Ruth, I would love to see a picture of these guys as well to see. I think an iron deficiency is highly unlikely. That's generally when you see veining in the leaf. Soil pH is very unlikely. Bleeding heart's going to yellow at this time of year because it's near its end of its cycle and season. And you could even see a little bit of yellowing on the astilbe. You can always cut some of those guys back. The azaleas shouldn't be yellowing right now, nor should the hydrangeas. So I'd love to see a picture. So once again, that's some of the comments that we had on Facebook. So you can see here on Frankie Flowers, I pop all over the place. I'm always here to help. For those questions that I haven't answered, if you're on here and you're a gardener that loves to share advice, loves to help out others, get on those comments. If you have some of the answers to the questions, please share your advice. I look through, I read them, and sometimes I learn from you too. I'm going to do my best to get on there and try to answer as many questions as well. I thank you for joining us this evening. I thank you for getting out there and gardening. Stay warm tonight. We're going to see an overnight low in Toronto down to about 11 degrees. Up through my area in Bradford, single-digit overnight lows. We're not used to that. It's going to be great for sleeping, and the plants are going to like it. They really will overall. Have a great night. Sleep tight. We'll see you on the